Oftentimes after I upload a video, I realize that I didn't complete my thoughts in certain arenas, and I get excited about releasing the video and then make these second audios to clarify some things, which is fine. That's what the channel is all about. Evolution from one video to the next, having deeper integration, realizations, insights. Anyhow, when I made the video about spin, cycle, and Carl Jung and the 7 sermons to the dead, it was maybe 4 years ago on Clubhouse. I was in a room with someone talking about the stars and constellations and Egypt and returning to the star of whatever constellation you happen to come through at your time of entry into this realm, if that's how it goes. That's how they were talking about it in this room, and I was chatting along with the host, and I heard in that time someone mention the 7 sermons to the dead in relation to that concept of returning to the stars. And it's always fascinated me. It's been in the back of my mind for years, and I bring it up and I ask people if they've read it and what their interpretation of it is. And when I read it myself, I was not surprised, but relieved that I finally got the understanding, and it wasn't so much of a mystery to me anymore what he was saying about human relation to star. So I'm going to play I read what I read, and here it is. There is yet one matter we forgot to mention. Teach us about man. Man is a gateway through which, from the outer world of gods, daemons, and souls, ye pass into the inner world. Out of the greater into the smaller world. Small and transitory is man. Already is he behind you, and once again you find yourselves in endless space, in the smaller or innermost infinity. At immeasurable distance standeth one single star in the zenith. This is the one God of this one man. This is his world, his pleroma, his divinity. In this world is man, Abraxas, the creator and the destroyer of his own world. This star is the God and the goal of man. This is his one guiding God. In him goeth man to his rest. Toward him goeth the long journey of the soul after death. In him shineth forth as light all that man bringeth back from the greater world. To this one God man shall pray. Prayer increaseth the light of the star. It casts a bridge over death. It prepares life for the smaller world and assuageth the hopeless desires of the greater. When the greater world waxes cold, burns the star. Between man and his one God there standeth nothing, so long as man can turn away his eyes from the flaming spectacle of Abraxas. Man here, God there. Weakness and nothingness here, their eternally creative power. Here nothing but darkness and chilling moisture, there holy sun, whereupon the dead were silent and ascended like the smoke above the herdsman fire, who through the night kept watch over his flock. And so from that, I gather that the star is the internal zenith, the orientation of one's integrity compass, I guess you could say, that while here embodied in this realm of density and everything is slow and just so challenged and limited and dual, and in with dual is everything. That's where the Abraxas concept comes from. It's everything that's beautiful and magical and special at the same time, everything that's horrific, terrible, and incomprehensible. It's all, you can't have one without the other. That's what Abraxas is representing. And that's why the contemplation in Jung's mind in this writing is so edgy, because it requires a lot of reconciliation or allowance from the ego to relinquish control over participating in a space that is all-encompassing. And I've expressed that myself in previous videos, how I have trouble reconciling that I'm here in this embodiment, and because I feel very connected to my internal star, but I don't know if it's only metaphorical, though. I actually like to consider, as many cultures and mythologies have as well, especially indigenous star people lineage. I do like to think that, all of the stars that we can see, every individual has a connection to one of those or clusters of stars. And that light, that concentration of light, when you look at them in the telescope, there are channels that I like to watch that have high-powered telescopes and look at the stars, and they look like they're dancing in water. There are these plasma orb type oscillations that are so beautiful. It's not just a mineral that's giving off a light or something. It's alive, and I feel that perhaps, even though we can't see, we can only see a tiny fraction of what there actually is. I feel that there's a connection, even though we can't see it, like the thread, the silver cord, the golden thread, to that higher element of self. And it's sort of, we're tethered into here, anchored into the realm, but we retain that connection to that highest zenith point of each person. And Jung talks about it in the 7 Sermons of the Dead, being metaphorical, that man is a gateway from, and I don't know, maybe he thought literally too, but didn't write it specifically, that man is a gateway from the earth to the heaven. And like I read, you could hear that, what he said. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about that and just clarify the results of what I found when I read the text. And so another thing I want to bring up is, I was going to make a separate video for this, but I'll just put them together. That zenith point, that orientation of man, as the world and the earthly realms grow colder, the star burns brighter. I relate that to the inner furnace, the inner dantian, our divine spark. And the more awareness and operating and navigating from that point, that inner zenith, I believe that it helps to let go of these other mechanisms that are driving the car, so to say, in our journey. the ego, the subconscious, the collective, the narratives of society, all of these different drivers. When I know that when I place my awareness on the essence of who I am before any of these conditionings or any of this patterning or programming, feel into that space that is me, not inside of the human, that is connected to something greater. I become more comfortable. The other parts of myself become more comfortable letting that star drive, if that makes sense. And so it's a long process over many, many years. I made a video maybe 10 years ago on my Heather Mattoon channel about being your own beacon, about turning on the light within in your heart or your spirit and allowing that to guide you through, because looking outward externally in this realm of polarity and abraxas, I just don't think it's reliable and safe to try and appoint so much power to anything else but that internal essential zenith of self. So I drew this diagram because I was listening to people talk. Well, I listen to people talk a lot, and I talk a lot too. And I notice patterns and I notice things that occur. And I notice that when people, or when I talk about life or reality or my viewpoint, that sometimes there's misunderstandings, because I could be talking about deeply personal, something in my psyche, and someone could be applying that to like society or the matrix of this realm. And there's all these different standpoints that one can speak from. And so I drew this concentric circular diagram that's not a map of reality or a cosmology, but more of a map of the roles or the standpoints that one can orient themselves from when speaking on reality or existence, or anything. So it's like someone says, you got to escape the matrix. And so you can look at the diagram and think, well, what matrix are they talking about? The matrix of the inner psyche, all the patterning and the conditioning that's created a web to sift through it internally, the matrix of the family system or interpersonal dynamics, the matrix of society and what's being done as a whole through that mechanism, the matrix of this realm, the mechanics of this realm, the universe as a whole, the unified field, the underlying substrate, like which part are you pointing to? And not just about asking about the matrix, but about sharing your experience of gnosis and where you observe, where are you placing your observations to gather that information. And so it's a work in progress, this graph, but when I was reading the text from Jung, and he says the inner zenith, I realized that in the center of this graph, before I read that, I put a pinpoint of light in the very center. And that is what I'm saying. In the subconscious, deep in the inner psyche, in the inner realms, there's this inner light that is actually a portal that takes you to the greater expanse. So instead of going outward concentrically through all the rungs, you can do meditation and contemplation in that deepest essential part of yourself. And because of the way the torus or electromagnetism, and it's not just speaking physically, it's metaphysically that these flows happen. When you go into the center, into the 0 point, it flips back out on the outermost rung to come back in and circle back through to integrate deeper. And the cycle never ends as long as you're alive, embodied. I feel that this work of hopping from rung to rung and experimenting with going inward and then being out and, you know, all of that is a long form alchemy. So thanks for listening. I appreciate everybody's comments and insights, because we're learning together and we're sharing our ways of speaking about these things and our unique lens. Another thing, I think, you know, each star is like a lens, a focus, and the light is focused in a specific way through each one of those. So we're all important, and I would love to hear what you have to say. If you want to put your channel in the comments, and other people can check out your stuff as well. All right, thanks.